Howdy folks, Matt here from Gulf Coast Fit, and I'm bringing some shoulder medicine to you today. I'm going to run through a scapular mobility and shoulder mobility complex, or circuit. It's actually a circuit. Remember, a complex is where you don't set the weight down between exercises, but a circuit, you might set the weight down, take a little break, or move on to a different toy. So this is technically a circuit, but I'll be using a slam ball. This is a 15-pounder for this workout. This slam ball shoulder mobility, scapular mobilization, and stabilization workout. The entire shoulder scapular complex is what we're aiming to address here. And what we want to do is provide a variety of movements that take both your scapulas, which are floating joints. They're not attached to anything. They wrap around your ribs. It's up to a well-developed upper posterior to keep your scapulas in place and help give you good posture. The scapulas are independent, but work in conjunction with the shoulder joint, the glenohumeral joint, which is a ball and socket joint. So a common theme on all of these is to articulate and be aware of what's going on with both the shoulder joint, that ball and socket, and then the scapulas, your wings. This is for injury prevention as far as my primary objective goes, but you can build some strength up in sneaky places, which is kind of synonymous with injury prevention. But you can get stronger in the upper body, and you can also build a little bit of muscle, because we will be building some mechanical tension. And less weight is more. I'm working with 15 pounds, but it's probably about the max weight. I might do this with 20 if I really wanted to go at it, but 5 or 10 pounds is plenty. Anywhere from 10 to 20 reps on any of these exercises. So let's start running through it. Gorgeous day out today. And remember, as far as good posture and well-rounded shoulder development and maintenance goes, doing things of this nature each and every day, whether it's band dislocates, band pulls, cable machine pulls, stuff like using a slam ball. By the way, you could use a dumbbell or a kettlebell. You can hold any weight, but up to 15 pounds, really plenty. I'm sitting down here on my yoga mat, because putting myself in a seated position challenges my core a little bit differently to stay upright, stabilize everything from the pelvic floor up. And it also just takes my legs out of the equation, so I don't have as many moving parts. Can work on isolating what our target is a little bit better. So let's start off with some halos. With a halo, you make a smooth horizontal orbit around your head. Let's see if we can get through this video without puppies knocking the camera over. So you see I've got a smooth orbit going on. I'm going all in the same direction once, or in the same direction before I switch. Sometimes I'll do alternating reps where I switch every single rep. But here I'm going to do about 10 one way, and that was probably about 10. Now we'll head the other direction. Now here again, I'm thinking about what my scapulas are doing and what my shoulder joints are doing. The scapula elevates, then the other scapula elevates and shrugs. The shoulder joints are internally and externally rotating. There's a lot of movement going on here, and you want to try to articulate, stay smooth and fluid through every single portion of this halo. Let's get a couple more. You want to keep it tucked in tight, very close to your head, all the way around. All right, good. Come on, bub. He's a camel. Literally just drank half a gallon of water. Crazy. That's how you stay hydrated. So that feels good. There's a lot going on there. Scap elevation and depression, internal and external rotation of the shoulders. Really think about your elbows making big circles as you orbit around your head. Moving right along, let's hit some rainbow raises. I'm sitting nice and tall. You can do these standing, kneeling, or seated. I've got my feet out in front of me, legs straight, trying to sit up nice and tall. It feels like it's a solid core workout too. Rainbow raises, I'm going to look forward, come up and over, tap the ground, up and over, tap the ground. So now I'm working the frontal plane, side to side movement as far as the ball is concerned. But I'm also working the transverse plane, because you see my thoracic spine and above is twisting in the transverse plane. So working 2 planes simultaneously, twisting in the transverse plane, kind of a nice spinal stretch, feels like I'm wringing out the towel, and frontal plane, bringing this ball up and over in a big rainbow. So you see my elbows are slightly bent. That's so I can maintain control as I lower it down, tapping the ground. Your arms are completely locked out. Kind of takes away from the control a little bit. Make sure this rainbow is coming directly up and over your head, not in front of you, but up and over your head. And try to twist your shoulders as much as possible. See how one shoulder's back? And then it finishes the rep forward. I like to think of my shoulders doing a full 180 pivot on every rep. I inhale on the way up, exhale on the way down. I'm just barely tapping the ground. I'm not letting it free fall to the ground. I'm not banging it off the ground. Just a little graze so we can work on decelerating and accelerating. A couple more. Again, 10 to 20 reps. Kind of on a medium volume like that for all of these exercises. All right, nice. So once again, the shoulders and the scapulas are moving independently of each other, but also working together. We got a nice little movement pattern Venn diagram going on there. All right, moving right along. I'm gonna switch it up to sagittal plane, moving front to back. So I've got the ball in front of me. Now this is an overhead raise, an overhead front raise, which means I take a front raise a little further than you might typically. Instead of stopping at shoulder level, I'm bringing it all the way up above my head and back down, tapping the ground in front of me. I also just tap the ground instead of setting it down to keep my shoulders engaged so they don't lose mechanical tension as I lower the ball down. This is actually very challenging for me to sit upright. My body wants to rock and sway back and forth, but every time I lift, I brace my core, and every time I get overhead, I shrug and elevate the scapulas. So imagine that your back's against the wall and that you have to brace your core to stay whoop, whoop, nice and vertical against the wall. There's a nice view. Let's keep it going. Inhale on the way up, exhale on the way down. For a lot of these, for most of these, I like to inhale as I open up. Open up, inhale, exhale, lower. Now what I really like about these overhead front raises is that when you reach the peak position over the crown of your head, directly above your head, and you're stabilizing, elevating and shrugging your shoulders, you feel it in the lower trapezius, middle of your back right below your scapulas. The lower trapezius, also considered traps 4, because your trapezius are broken up into 4 sections. Traps 4 are responsible for overhead stabilization, or they're heavily involved in overhead stabilization. So if you get over your head and you feel this in your mid-back below your shoulder blades, even though that's not near the moving parts, it's way down below, that's a good thing. Then you're activating your lower trapezius and getting the benefit of stabilizing overhead using them. All right, oh, that's tough. Again, 15 pounds, plenty. If I really wanted to go ham and use this for kind of more of a strength circuit, I would go up to 20 pounds. I wouldn't do as many reps. But remember, the primary objective here is movement enhancement, all right? Increasing your range of motion and articulation with all of the moving parts that are going on in your upper body. That's why this is really an injury prevention circuit more than anything. All right, next up, I'm gonna go into a, what I call a windshield wiper. Watch out, Luther. All right, sit nice and tall. Windshield wipers, swipe to the side, bring it over, boop, boop, boop. Swipe to the other side. I'm keeping this as horizontal as possible, which is harder than it seems, harder than you would think. Imagine swiping across the horizon, and you see my shoulders are twisting. My feet are actually shifting back and forth as I twist one way or the other. You can kind of see that. A lot of thoracic rotation, even lumbar rotation. I'm looking forward the entire time, keeping my eyes fixed on something. My shoulders, my anterior deltoids, are holding a challenging isometric contraction because I'm holding this up the whole time, shoulders are isometrically engaged and fixed, while my thoracic and spinal rotation is what's actually moving the ball. So the ball is always fixed right in front of your sternum while you're doing these. Get a couple more in. That was my way of taking a break, because holding that isometric contraction is pretty darn tough. All right, good. So on each of these exercises, as subtle as they are, and even though you're not using a super big weight, they should become very challenging. By the time you hit anywhere from 10 to 20 reps, you don't want to go to absolute failure. You might approach technical failure, where you can't keep the movement under complete control anymore. By that point, you will have worked up a pretty good burn. These all do a pretty good job of increasing mechanical tension because you're under that load the entire time. Muscles stay engaged, so you're going to feel the burn, which is fine. It's not the end game, that's not the goal. It's just part of the process. So take the movement as far as you can, work through the burn, focus on the task, not the fatigue, and just keep chipping away at it. All right, moving right along. What I'm going to do now is kind of another halo variation. This is an off-axis halo, and you see I've got the circular motion going on again, but I'm not on the same axis as I was with the initial halos that we started with. And I like these because as I come down and up and around, my scapulas are experiencing a little bit more of an upward and downward tilt. And I'll explain what that is as I switch sides. Let me get a few more. Wrapping this ball around the upper back of my head, and then I'm bringing it down below in front of me. So your scapulas are your wings, two separate floating joints. With this off-axis halo, we get a little bit more upward and downward tilt of the scapulas than we do on the completely horizontal halos that we started with. Let me go the other way now. Which way was I going? Here we go. Hopefully I switched directions. It's one of those things I find out after I upload and share it. I keep it tight around the back of my head, make it more of an oval now instead of a perfect halo circle. Really thinking about that upward and downward tilt of the scapulas. I'm getting a really good lat stretch here as I wrap it up and around. Feels good on my posture. Feels good on my mid to upper back. This one's actually a little bit easier than the conventional halos because I get to kind of let it down, get a little reprieve every time you drop it down a little bit. But that's cool, it's just a different movement to focus on. Grab a little sip of coffee. All right, so gonna move into one that is simpler but actually much more challenging, and that's a steering wheel. Typically you'll see steering wheels being done with plates. I like using a slam ball because it challenges my grip a little bit more. So with a steering wheel, you can hold this straight up in front of you, face level, just like the namesake. We're gonna steer that bus, doing a full 180, maybe even past the 180, focusing again on the upward and downward tilt of the scapulas. As one scapula tilts up, the other tucks down and in. One rotates up, the other rotates down and in. You want to hold this up to about face level. You don't want to just twist with the hands. That's a big flaw here, common flaw. We're keeping the arms fixed and we're moving from the scapulas and the shoulder joint. So the wrists really stay fixed. We're moving more from the core, also from the shoulders, the deltoids. There's a lot of internal and external rotation here. So scapulas and shoulders are working together, kind of doing the same movement, but they're doing their own thing as well. So let me get a few more of those. See the internal and external rotation of the shoulder joint. But I'm also tilting one shoulder blade up while I depress the other down. All right, nice. Feeling good? I'm feeling good. A little sip here. All right, moving right along. doing another small but big bang for your buck exercise. This one always gives me some trouble, and that's an overhead shrug. Overhead shrugs are all about the scapular elevation and depression. You're actively elevating against the resistance and allowing the resistance to passively depress your scapulas back down into place. So, sit nice and tall. Elbows can be slightly bent, but push it up as much as you can. I'm gonna shrug up and let the ball depress me down. Shrug up, let the ball depress me down. Now you see my elbows are bent a little bit, that's fine. You just don't want this to turn into a press using your triceps. So we shrug elevate the scapulas and shrug, depress. It's a short range of motion, only a few inches, but that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Sometimes you might feel like you're doing it wrong because you're not moving a lot, but it's very challenging without moving a lot. Starting to lean back, lean forward more. Like I said, this is small, but it packs a wallop. It's tougher than it looks. Oh yeah, that one gets me in a hurry. It's also tough because I put that on down the line. You can switch up the order of these exercises. If any of them in particular give you a lot of trouble, put them towards the front. So if I were to redo this again for round 2, like I'm gonna do after this, I might put those overhead shrugs towards the front because they're small, but they're very challenging, and I like that. All right, moving right along, we're gonna go into, once again, kind of another halo, but we're switching our axis of rotation a bit further. So we started going horizontal, then we were going at an angle, down and up. Now we're going completely in the frontal plane, side to side lateral motion, for the most part. You'll see what I mean. Started down here a little bit lower. I'm gonna bring this up over my head and down. Up over my head and down. And once again, I like that there's a lot going on here with the shoulders, the scapulas, and the spinal rotation. There's really a lot of moving parts here. And the more you can get those parts moving, the better. Think that we're trying to lubricate your joints and your connective tissue while we're working your muscles, building up a burn, pumping that blood into the muscles. So you see here, this is a nice vertical axis that we're on, working in the frontal plane. Switch directions. So this is called a vertical halo. You call it whatever you want as long as you know what you're trying to get out of it and as long as you're keeping it safe. And that's what that's what training's all about. Knowing what you want to get out of something and taking the right steps to do that in an efficient way to optimize the training effect you're getting. Wonderful. All right. I'm going to give you one more. And it's actually hard to narrow this list down into one video. I'll make more videos. This will be one shoulder medicine circuit of many. This one's with the slam ball. So, let me think here. Ooh, all right, I'm gonna go with a kind of a toughie here. And this is a combination of the windshield wipers I did. It's actually an alternating windshield wiper. And you can kind of, I used to call this a half iron cross as well. Iron cross usually have a weight in both hands, but here we're gonna have one weight in one hand and switch it back and forth. So I'm gonna finish with a toughie. So we're gonna hold this ball up, and bring it to the middle, and switch. Open up to the middle, and switch. I think I used to call these iron cross passes. You can also call it half windshield wipers. Now I'm combining kind of an isometric contraction, holding the ball up, with some scapular protraction and retraction. When my hands come together, my scapulas protract and spread apart. When my hands open up, my scapulas retract. And what I really like is when I bring the ball out to the side, it wants to pull me over. But I don't let that happen because I'm avoiding that lateral flexion. So anti-lateral flexion is the core challenge. A couple more here. So sitting tall and vertical and neutral becomes a little bit more of a challenge here. And I can feel that transition from my obliques on one side to my obliques on the other side. Oh yeah. Whew, I'm about done though there. I'm gonna take a couple minutes and get another round in. This is something you can do 10 to 20 reps. 1, 2, or even 3 rounds. Take a couple minutes between rounds, adjust the weight if you need to, adjust the repetitions and volume of each exercise if you need to. And remember, you can play around with the order too. So everyone's different. So prioritize what things you need to front load and what things that you can safely put towards the back when you're a little more fatigued. So give that a go. Remember, you can use a dumbbell, kettlebell, slam ball, whatever, weight's weight, as long as you're mobilizing the scaps and shoulders and focusing on articulating every little movement and detail. Slower is better, and let's have some fun with it. Catch you later.